Hello there, and welcome to my live stream this evening. I'm so excited because we are going global. We are going to New York, and we are talking to Jim Frawley from Bellwether Hub. Hello, Jim. Hi, how are
Hello,
you?
how are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm delighted. This is great. I just love when I can talk to people that are in different countries and online. And this is what online's all about. We can build relationships globally. So I just absolutely love this. And for people who don't know you, Jim, so we're live on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So hello to everybody on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. If you want to comment, we can show your comment on the screen. For people who don't know you, Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Jim Frawley. I run an organization called Bellwether here in New York. We are a change management and executive coaching firm, and we help people adapt to change. And that's really what we do. We do it for organizations and for people. And I'm the author of a new book called Adapting in Motion, Finding Your Place in the New Economy, and the host of the Bellwether Hub podcast.
Well, do you know what? I love your podcast, and I think you have a great voice. You have a great voice. And your book as well. Oh my gosh, it couldn't have come at a better time, huh? Adapting to change.
It's the world is upside down. And the crazy thing about change is that we never know the change that's coming. So it's very difficult to prepare. Very difficult to prepare when you don't know what's coming.
That's true. And you actually help people. I just want to acknowledge Tom, who's just joined in from LinkedIn to watch us. Hiya, Tom. I will keep an eye on the comments, folks, and I won't forget you. I'll be watching, so don't you worry. We're actually going to give you some great tips today. And it's all about how to communicate effectively with decision makers. And I don't know about you, Jim, but during the pandemic, hasn't it been actually nearly easier to get to decision makers, I've found? Have you found that?
Yeah, I have. It's well, it depends on, I guess it depends on your industry and what you're looking to do, but everybody has just accelerated their accessibility because they live online. Everybody lives online now. And so you don't have that barricade of geography and location and everything else. Everybody is just more in tune to finding what they need.
Well, do you know what? I think so. And I also think that, you know what? People are human and everybody is going through the same. And I think that's a big help as well, because people seem to forget that decision makers are humans.
Yeah, completely. And I think especially with technology, it's the great benefit of technology is that we understand that there are people dealing with the exact same thing that we're dealing with. And it doesn't matter the level. We always heard about it growing up. The CEO puts their pants on the same way that you do, one leg at a time. Now we actually see it. And from a technological standpoint.
Or her dress.
That's true. Thank you. Yes. Or her dress. Puts their clothes on one limb at a time.
Yeah.
And it's the same for everybody.
Yeah. It's funny. Actually, sorry about that. I'm just a devil when it comes to things like that. But yeah, I mean, that's it. And, I think everyone's had the same struggles. Everyone's had lost somebody or known someone who's passed away and stuff. So it's tough times. So we're going to give some tips to the audience about how to communicate effectively with decision makers. So, Jim, what is number one tip for communicating with decision makers?
Is knowing who the decision maker actually is. Tip number one, that was the first thing I thought of. How much time, especially for entrepreneurs, how much time do you spend talking to people that have no real decision-making power? And it's a complete waste of time. And for entrepreneurs who are both selling a service and delivering a service, time is really at a premium. So you have your good relationships and you have your decision makers, and they're not always the same person. So doing that kind of research and eliminating the time spent with someone who can't really make that decision is an important lesson to learn.
It's so important. And you know what? I've done it myself. I've built a relationship with someone, and for years, 3 years, and it's I was with the wrong person all the time. And it could be that the decision maker doesn't even know you exist.
That's right. Yeah, they may need what you have. They may not know that you exist, and it's a good idea to review really your network, because your network is so important to expand it as large as you can. But the power of your network is to meet the decision makers that your network knows. So focusing on them and using your relationships in the right way based on where they go and where they would be a good fit for you is really important.
Well, Eleanor has just commented and said, guys, you start at the top and funnel way down, as the top person will always direct you to the right person. Save time. Excellent. Well done. Well done. Thanks, Eleanor, for joining us. So, okay, so that's one thing. So, number one, knowing who the decision maker is. And can you give some tips for finding that decision maker by any chance?
Yeah, well, Eleanor just did it. You start at the top, but oftentimes the person at the top doesn't really necessarily want to get involved in that level of detail. So, accessibility to the person at the top, ideally, especially with technology, we're able to find more. But by then filtering down, for my industry and coaching, most people focus in human resources, but that's not where I sell, because the human resources people generally don't have the capacity to buy what I'm looking to do. So you find the head of the business that you want to help, whether it's a sales organization or marketing organization or whatever aspect of the world that you want to focus on. And those are the people that can actually write the check.
Yeah, absolutely. And, sometimes just a little tip for folks here that might not be aware, there are a lot of decision makers on Twitter as well. And sometimes it's just a case, which happened to me yesterday, it's just a case of actually following the person, commenting and building a relationship with them. And then you could DM them and ask them who is the right person or whatever, but take it offline, build relationships, but then you can take it offline. So just be aware that some people don't realize that Twitter has a lot of, decision makers there too, as well as LinkedIn.
And when you look at that, it's important to remember that, it's the great equalizer. And we talk to a lot of people, especially in the coaching world, about that inner saboteur, the ability to, imposter syndrome. Should I be sitting at this table? And you can build these relationships now without actually sitting at the table. And so when you recognize that you should be at the table, it's a valuable tool to showcase your expertise.
I love that. When you recognize that you should be at the table, it's a valuable tool. Brilliant. I love it. Well done. Okay. So tip number two for communicating with decision makers.
You have to prepare appropriately. And when I mean preparing appropriately, pitching a decision maker, you have to be at the top of your game. We know that. And whether it's writing an email, whether it's going into a meeting, doing the proper preparation at the beginning to anticipate what questions they're going to have, what objections they're going to have. I love the old saying, sorry, I wrote you a long email. I didn't have time to write you a short one. How are you actually taking the time to do the thinking for the decision maker?
Okay.
And showcase that, yes, you're not just selling your product, you're solving their problem. And so saying that I've done the thinking for you, I've got everything laid out, then you also have to, aside from the product, is you have to talk about how you're going to differentiate yourself from everybody else, because you and many other people have the exact same product. So part of your preparation is who are you and why should they listen to you, and give that kind of that information, your street cred, right at the top.
Okay. So they're not going to be interested in speaking to you unless you are going to solve their problem. And how do you stand out from all the other people that are probably emailing them or messaging them and asking for a meeting? I actually kind of like the fact that the pandemic and being online has actually eliminated that trip or whatever, that meeting that could have been an email. I kind of like that.
Oh, I save so much time. Yeah. Absolutely.
If anyone has any questions, by the way, please do. Amanda has a great one there. Know your numbers. She just says, know your numbers. So, okay. So we know who the decision maker is. We've prepared how we're going to approach them. What is the third tip, Jim?
You have to build the relationship. And it's not going to happen overnight. Even though you get to a decision maker right away, the concept of sales has evolved from very transactional to more relationship based, and it happens over time. And so authenticity is very important. Having good questions to have them talk about their particular situation to match it is very important. And you're not selling all of the time. So when you think about relationships with other people, focusing on what's important to them, not necessarily how you can sell to them. I mean, when you go, what's the purpose of networking is not to sell to those people. It's about to build relationships, and decision makers build relationships. Decision makers know other decision makers, and we buy from people we like. And we'll often find decision makers not through normal business networking channels. I do a 5K in Central Park once a month, and the purpose of that isn't because we like running, but it's also a networking group for people who don't want to network. And you meet fellow runners who happen to be in different industries, and all of a sudden these people are part of your networking group, and they could be a knitting club, they could be whatever. You find these people that have similar interests, and then you build that relationship, and those decision makers are going to be there.
I love it. And you're so right. Sometimes the person that you need to be speaking, I knew somebody actually that had a kite surfing business. And some of the people that kite surf are some of the biggest CEOs going, and I was like, oh my God. And he knew these really top people, because they look, kite surfing apparently is not a very, it's quite an expensive hobby, but running, it's like, I want to go into that a little bit, Jim, because I know that you've actually inspired me to start wanting to do the 5K in Central Park with you someday, which we will do. We'll make it happen. And I know that you're doing a little bit of work with Sober St. Patrick's Day. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, Sober St. Patrick's Day is it's a fantastic organization trying to restructure the image of the Irish on St. Patrick's to move away from binge drinking into more of an Irish cultural celebration. And we have a running club. We do a 5K every year on St. Patrick's Day in Central Park, and we're going to be setting up many more runs. We've got a halfway to St. Patrick's Day run on September 17th, halfway to St. Patrick's Day, and anybody can run virtually, so you may as well do it. There you go. You've got your running shirt. Very nice.
I have. Yeah.
And so join from anywhere.
Yeah, we can join from anywhere virtually. So that's just a little. It's just something to let you know, folks, that is coming. If you do want to, there you go. Someone just said they'll join me on the 5K as well. I can't see who it is, but if you can give me your name, just it's not coming up here. So there you go. So you see, so do follow Jim, because he will be giving details of that soon. But back to the decision makers. Yeah. Do you find that most decision makers are very approachable, or have you any tips for people who might have a fear of approaching a decision maker, for example?
Absolutely. So decision makers are very approachable as long as you're not wasting their time. And they can quickly figure out the difference between those people. So recognizing that you are an expert in your particular area and are able to sit at that table, then yes, they're very approachable as long as you treat them the way that they want to be treated.
And what way is that, though? What way? Yeah, can you give us what way is that? You're saying the way they want to be treated. What way is that like? So do you mean like someone just said, oftentimes decision makers build walls around themselves. How do you get them to listen? So I think even that language you can hear there, how do you get them to listen, could be, have you any advice there?
Yeah, the right way to get them to listen is to ask them really good questions. It's not about them listening to you. It's about you getting the information from them. One of the big secrets in coaching is that, I can tell anybody what to do, but 99% of the advice we don't take is the advice given to us from other people. We have to realize it for ourselves. So when people can articulate their particular challenges or what it is that they're looking for, and showing a true curiosity for that decision maker and interest in what they're saying, all of a sudden you become an ally for them. When you think about running, or you think about any of these people, get up early in the morning. They're hard charging individuals typically. I meet most of them. I do triathlons. They all do Ironman events. They do kite surfing. These are the type of people that I like being around. But they're also a decision maker, and they get up early and they execute. So asking them questions about what their big challenge is and having them articulate that they need a solution that you happen to provide, all of a sudden your work is finished. Showing the interest in them and having them articulate what they need, they've done the work for you.
Actually, do you know what as well? And with women in particular, I find a lot of them, they get up early. They might do yoga or meditation, and men as well. And sea swimming is another one that I've noticed people are doing. But it's always that's one of the reasons I'm trying to actually start doing 5K, because I know that successful people, to keep my head right, to keep my everything right, it's all about how you feel and look after yourself as well, because otherwise you're no use to anybody. Yeah. So yeah. I think you're right. Someone else said they love running, or Sharon, that's Sharon actually. So I think, so ask the right questions. Okay. So could you give us an example of that? So let's say I had let's say a social media agency, and I wanted to, and I knew that they needed me. I knew that they needed me and that I could really help them. How do I, like, should I just bring all the data and references, or should I bring my, just show them, or should I ask them first? Okay, so what is your biggest challenge? Like, what kind of questions? Would you give us just an example there of a question?
Yeah. And so I'm going to start that by asking, do you know what the definition of a question is?
There you go. Okay.
The definition of a question is a request for information where you legitimately do not know the answer.
Right.
That's a question. And when we go in with all of this data and our solutions and everything else, we're not waiting for, we're asking a question, but we've got it with the anticipation of saying something else.
Yeah.
We ask these, fake questions with the anticipation of saying, well, here's why I can provide you a solution.
Great.
So going in, you should have your numbers ready. You should have your data ready. You should have all of this ready. But that doesn't come to the table until you actually get the context of specifically what it is they're looking to do and what it is that they're looking to fix or change or whatever you're talking to them about. Then you can ask objective questions. You separate yourself and them from the problem and you co-create it together. And that's what questions are all about. We're fixing this challenge together. You're becoming an ally with this decision maker. All of a sudden they can't do it without you.
Yeah.
And so we have legitimate questions, find out specifically what their problem is from their perspective with their context. And all of a sudden we incorporate our solution into matching with that.
That's so brilliant. Well done. That's lovely. Yeah, I think people will appreciate that information. That's very helpful, Jim. And
I call me brilliant. That makes me feel so good.
Well, it is. We have a lot of people who are small business owners here. For example, Catherine has said, true facilitation means not knowing where conversation is going. Active listening is key. Thank you so much, Catherine, for adding that. Catherine is joining us on Twitter. Tom Baldwin has said, pets. Lisa, who was an international, this is look at Tom, was an international swimmer out of Holland. She swam in the open sea throughout this winter, and she and her friends have raised funds for many charities. Excellent, brilliant. Well done, Tom. You must be so proud. Definition of a question. Great question. There you go. Brilliant, Jim. So a lot of people who are small business owners here and would like to get to decision makers. Someone said they never thought of it that way. Ask good questions, Louise says. So these are all, if anyone, maybe we need to do a little article around this actually, Jim. Jim is on Twitter, by the way, if you want to follow Jim, and if you have any questions before we finish up, Jim, that's been really, really helpful. So number one, knowing who the decision maker is. Number two, preparing numbers, data, all of that stuff appropriately. And then number three, building the relationship. Any tips on, introducing someone to a decision maker? Can I get some advice on that? So I sometimes know decision makers, and what is the best way to introduce them? Is it by email? Or what is the right thing to do there for someone? Normally what I do is I ask the decision maker first, is it okay if I introduce this person? Is that the way to go?
Yeah, that's what I typically do too. It's, if we're talking about decision makers, we talked before about walls around decision makers. You are a gate to that decision maker. But anybody you're referring to that person is a reflection of you. So you want to make sure that it's set up in the right and appropriate way. So if you were to set up, you can do it email, you can do it. I mean, it depends on your relationship with that decision maker and how good of a relationship that is. But I've had decision makers where I didn't have a great relationship, but I said, I saw you wrote this article. I know this person is a great fit, and we're loosely connected. And, I've made some people do that, but really it's up to the relationship and your kind of relationship economics with that person and what you can draw from.
Yeah, I like to make sure that I know that, it's not going to be someone that's going to wreck their heads or,
Right,
sorry.
right, yeah.
We have to be careful that way. I'm just going to push, someone has just asked, actually, I think it's Elizabeth. Hang on, I'll check who it was there. Jim actually has a podcast, and he actually had me on there recently, but he did a really, a few lovely podcasts, actually, if you want to check it out. So if you go to his website and go to podcast, you can check out his podcast there, because Amanda has asked really interesting, what's Jim's podcast? And definitely follow Jim there on Bellwether Hub. Thank you so much, Amanda. And someone asked, is it like asking open-ended questions?
Yeah, it is. As long as we understand, open-ended questions, we still want a little bit of direction. And so I guess I'll give homework for people if they want to look it up. There's a framework for questions that's amazing, and it's called the ORID framework. And you can just type it in, ORID, into Google, and it'll pop up everything. But there are objective questions, reflective questions, interpretive questions, and decisional questions. And I won't get into all of that here, but that is an arc to bring someone through a conversation. Asking objectively, what is it you're looking to do? Reflectively, what have you tried in the past? Interpretive, what does it mean today? And then decisional, what are we going to do? So ORID, the ORID framework, is a really good one to research and look into Google if you want to do some of your own homework. Or if you want to reach out to me, I'm happy to talk you through that stuff too.
Maybe we should do a little webinar on the ORID framework. Yeah.
That's it. ORID. Yep.
Okay, brilliant. So there you go. So we've learned loads today. Jim, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Super. I think that's Louise, actually. Louise always says super, super. Maybe it's Tom, I don't know. But Amanda, thank you for joining us. Tom, Elizabeth, everybody, thank you so much. Brenda. Jim, do connect with Jim and listen to his podcast and do support him. He's a good guy, really nice guy. And he's also a member of the Irish Business Organization New York. And that's kind of how we got together, and also Sober St. Patrick's Day. So, Jim, thank you so much. Have a lovely evening. And everybody, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.